So in case you can't tell, I have moved to another location. I am back in New York, back in Columbia University, my school. And because of that, videos might be a little slower coming out these next couple days than they normally would be. So please forgive me that. Also, it's the truth that this adjustment is a little awkward, so I might not have all of my customary accoutrement. So I'm sorry for that in advance, but since we're here, let's get right back to the topic of this video, which is Sasha and Marcy. Since I've already considered the pairing of Anne and Marcy, I will now consider the pairing of Marcy and Sasha. This is a pairing that has grown significantly in popularity since the end of Season 2. Although we have not seen a lot of Marcy and Sasha alone together outside the context of their relationships with Anne. Anne, to quickly recap, was stuck on Earth with the Planters at the end of Season 2. This leaves Marcy and Sasha together in Amphibia. Marcy in this interstitial state somewhere between life and death, Sasha melancholic and desperate, looking passionately and ruefully for Marcy. King Andreas stabbed Marcy through the heart with a flaming sword, and Anne's last image she saw there on Earth was her friend getting stabbed and slumping over dead. Now, of course, Marcy isn't really dead, or not exactly dead. It's unclear at this point whether she actually died and was brought back to life, or whether she just never died in the first place. But as of the Season 3 opening, she's hooked up to a bunch of wires and tubes, keeping her suspended in this floating jar of fluid. Sasha is probably going to have to rescue her, as Anne is not there in Amphibia. A lot of stories fans have thought up about this possible Sasha and Marcy pairing have centered on Sasha going and rescuing Marcy from the terrible state Marcy has found herself in. And of course, Sasha is going to step into a more of an outright hero role. Following the end of Season 2, I've always argued that she's more of a hero than a lot of people have given her credit for, but she's going to demonstrate that in Season 3, becoming a sort of revolutionary leader, and in that process, she's going to help rescue Marcy. Now, do I really, in my heart of hearts, think this pairing is going to happen romantically? I don't know. If I have to be honest, I'd say I'm kind of doubtful. When I was discussing the possible pairing of Marcy and Anne, I said that there was little solid evidence supporting this pairing, despite what a lot of overhyped fans were saying at the time. And there is far less evidence than that supporting the pairing of Marcy and Sasha. Amphibia is not a particularly romance-focused show, and in that it stands out among the crowd of popular animated shows of the last few years. These shows tend to rely, or depending on your perspective, even over-rely on romance. Think Star vs. the Forces of Evil, think Steven Universe, shows like that. Not bad shows that have rightfully attained a lot of popularity, but shows that nonetheless depend heavily on romantic pairings. This show isn't like that. There's no central couple. The focus is more on friendship, and not in a cheap, easy, sentimental way, but in the way that we don't know those we claim to be close to half as well as we think we do. We presume about them. We don't understand that they've changed, or that there are sides to them we might not know. We don't quite understand what drives them. They remain a mystery to us, and that causes a lot of problems in the relationships. The friendship between these three is strong. It's still strong. There's real warmth and tenderness and affection there. But there's also resentment and bitterness and a chronic feeling that they've been overlooked by the others. And for the record, Anne is not necessarily the innocent one here. She's allowed the problems in the relationship to fester as much as any of them, and she has perpetuated a lot of those problems. But we've already seen how Sasha and Marcy interact in the context of their bonds with Anne, but we've not seen really how they interact just with each other when they're alone and left to talk and left to contemplate the world when it's just the two of them. The showrunner, Matt Brawley, provided a lot of info on this relationship in a relatively recent interview, saying that they connect with each other on a different and perhaps a deeper level than they connect with Anne on. Now, that's not to say they don't like Anne or that they don't respect Anne, but they are more like each other than they are like Anne. They have this instant, precise understanding between them. They're on the same wavelength, you could say. Their minds are harmonious. Communication is one of the central factors of any relationship, romantic or otherwise. And Sasha and Marcy are, according to Brawley, really dang great at communicating with each other. They complement each other's strengths. Marcy is the book-smart puzzle solver. Naive a bit, very enthusiastic about learning and studying the world around her. She's a very systematic thinker. She's not great on acting on intuition, and she's not really great at just obeying the orders given to her. Rather, she is concerned with her own personal explorations of the world around her. She wants to know everything about a specific circumstance that she's found herself in. Only then, once she has collected all the information she needs, does she really feel willing to make a decision. This doesn't mean she's timid, necessarily, but it does mean that she is more focused on her own individual, systematic way of comprehending the challenges that lay before her than she is in observing duties or functioning effectively in a group dynamic. Of course, she's not great at understanding her own feelings and her own emotions, and this can lead to a significant blind spot if a situation differs quite a bit from what it appears to be, as is the case with Andreas. She is not good at picking up on those kinds of red flags. She's not good at really sorting through her emotions and understanding and contemplating these different impulses within her. She's much better at understanding math and logic, or even languages, anything systematic that she can just apply her very intelligent mind to. She's not great at understanding when social situations are not as she wants them to be. On a grand level, on a larger scale level, she understands the politics and the socio-cultural history of Newtopia, and she cares deeply for the citizens of Newtopia. That's not the problem. The problem is that on a smaller scale, interpersonal level, she's often awkward and confused. She's heavily reliant on the cues given to her by other people, and so when she doesn't have those close relationships, she can not only feel alone and desperate, she can feel kind of confused and unable to really discern whether a situation, such as the one with Andreas, might have certain negative and seedy undertones that she's not quite aware of. Sasha is the complete opposite. She's not nearly as knowledgeable as Marcy. She doesn't have an encyclopedia of information. But what she does have is a lot of persuasive skills. She can invent plans. She's great at strategizing, and she's great at rallying people to support those strategies. She's not great at making connections with people, unlike Anne, but she's great at getting people to not just do what she says, but really believe that she cares about them and that she's trying to do what's best for them. Now, Sasha is not selfish. She's not even really that manipulative. She certainly does not see herself in that light, and she's not wrong to kind of get angry when people suggest that she's a bad person, because, I mean, she's not. She's done some bad things, but she's done them out of a real openness of spirit, a real willingness and passion for helping those she really cares about. Oftentimes her spell wears off on people, not even because she's necessarily in the wrong, but because her affection doesn't always necessarily come across as affection, as real compassion for people, even when it is that. She's less sentimental, less given to dramatic outbursts of feeling. She's more grounded. She's more calculating. She's great at taking control of a situation. She's great at understanding it and turning it to her advantage. She doesn't let illusions and trickery slip past her. Unlike Marcy, she's not naive. She knows not just how to read people, but how to interact with them, how to enter into a battle of minds and wits and wills with them. She relishes that opportunity. She relishes stepping into this visible, quasi-heroic role. Not because she's conceited, although she has conceded a little bit, but because she genuinely believes she is doing what's right. Both Sasha and Marcy are extremely intelligent, but there are many different ways to be intelligent, and Marcy and Sasha are intelligent in very different ways. Sasha doesn't have the academic celerity of mind of Marcy, but she's a great leader, and she's very selfless and passionate. She understands how people think and how they operate, and she understands how to convince them of her plans and strategies. She's a great rhetorician. She's great at using logic and a strong personal sense of her own values in order to win people over. She's intelligent in the same way that a great politician or statesperson is intelligent. Marcy, conversely, is intelligent in the same way that, say, a great engineer or scientist or professor is intelligent. They're both ambitious and goal-driven, and this sharply contrasts with Anne. At the start of the show, Anne was quite lazy, and even though Anne has developed a more significant sense of who she is, she's still relatively easygoing. It's not necessarily that Marcy and Sasha don't respect Anne, but they understand each other's worldview much more than they understand Anne's worldview. This is the perspective the creator was trying to convey about the Marcy and Sasha relationship, and although you don't necessarily have to take his word for it, I think you should, because it's accurate to what the show is actually telling you. The relationship between Marcy and Sasha, then, is a strong and enduring relationship, even if we have not seen nearly as much of it as we've seen of the Marcy and Anne or Anne and Sasha relationships. These are two people who really care about each other, who really understand each other's perspective, and who really work well together. I'm not necessarily going to say I prefer the Marcy and Anne pairing or the Marcy and Sasha pairing, because being dualistic like that and only picking a single side in such a relatively insignificant kind of conflict like that is not really where I think my energies are best invested. But the Marcy and Sasha pairing, I'm saying, could definitely work. These are two people who really understand who the other person is, and they're not afraid to tell the other how they really feel. This is only my personal conjecture, but I genuinely believe that if it had just been Marcy and Sasha, they would have been able to tell each other how they really felt. That Marcy was going to stay in Amphibia, and that Sasha was going to go through with the Toad's plan. They would have been willing to communicate that to each other had not Anne been there. And I think that matters. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. If you have one pairing that you prefer, you can sound off in the comments. Please be kind, please be civil, please be considerate. Don't be parochial and sectarian. I'm glad the Amphibia fandom has not been drawn into a lot of inane, unnecessarily merciless romance discussions, unlike a lot of other fandoms. But it's a nice thing to talk about every once in a while. So anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. I promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.